Howdy, everybody. I'm really excited today to provide one of the first workshops on how to publish decentralized feeds on Near with Switchboard. Yeah, I'm really excited because we need to decentralize um, there are the way we do oracles and APIs, and yeah, I'm really excited to learn, and we have Mitch here today with us,
How's
and
it going?
yeah, let's get it started.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, thanks for having me here. Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Mitch. I'm CTO of Switchboard. And yeah, we are building a permissionless Oracle protocol on Near. We're multi-chain too. We're launched on Near, Solana, Aptos, and coming to more. But Near has been a fantastic chain, fantastic team behind it, and I feel very strongly about the support of the Near community and its growth. So very happy to be here and happy to help the DeFi community grow. So a little bit to get started, if I can go to the next slide. Oh, wow, we have effects here. So really, the whole idea behind protocols, if you don't really know them, is how can you access non-deterministic data on chain? And what I mean by non-deterministic, think about when you make a web request. When you have a very specific request, you're not guaranteed to get a same response every single time. So when you're dealing with the world of blockchain, how can actually different nodes across the world come to consensus on that type of data? Turns out it's actually pretty difficult. So what oracles do is they offer a different mechanism to create consensus on non-deterministic data to bring it on chain in a very high integrity way. And usually what that consensus model is taking some sort of weighted median based off of stake to pull that information on chain. So oracles are really serving as that intermediary for all this information off chain that isn't deterministic in a way that validators for a network can really digest and trust the information that they're seeing to be used for, more high integrity operations. That is, really what the blockchain is used for. So the special things about Switchboard is that it's actually completely permissionless. So anyone can actually go and decide what data they want to bring on chain, and we will automatically match you with machines to go fulfill that. And we do that by having a specialized schema language or data language that all of our oracles really understand for how to operate on information from off chain, how to transform it, and how to make it digestible for users in the end. We also have VRFs on chains that don't natively support it, but Near, as you know, does. So not as relevant for this talk. But really, when we talk about the consensus that I talked about before and making this information permissionless, I did talk about the median. So really, it's all quantitative data you can think of to bring on chain is really easy to do using Switchboard. So what can you use, off-chain data for? What are oracles tend to be used for? Let's say in DeFi, if you need collateralized lending, you have to understand the price of each asset that you're lending between to actually evaluate risk properly for you as a protocol, how much you're willing to lend, how much they should be collateralized or over collateralized in some scenarios. For perpetual markets, what are the funding rates and liquidation prices that you need for open positions on the market. And if you want to make some sort of sports game or anything that wants to do any with any other type of gaming information, you might want to get sports scores for the most the FIFA game, so you can build a lot of apps based around the results of those games, which is a really powerful tool. So how does this all actually work? So in Switchboard, we have a few different types of entities, and I'll introduce you to the most basic ones first. We have the Oracle and the data feed. And the Oracle is actually an on-chain representation of the machine that goes and fulfills a request off-chain. It's the one doing all the work, bringing all the information on-chain and choosing what's the most accurate answer. The data feed is actually the object that tells the oracles what jobs to do, what information to fetch, and actually responsible for doing the math and coming to consensus on all the information that the oracles deliver back on chain. So the way that Switchboard works is that we have two other entities called an Oracle queue and a crank. An Oracle queue is just a realm of oracles that when data feeds want to update their value, they take oracles out of that pool and they get assigned to the data feed for the next update. And then right at that point, all the oracles are signaled that a new update event's been triggered, and they check if it's assigned to them. If it is, they do the job. And we also have this mechanism called a crank for scheduling data feed updates. So when I said that Switchboard's permissions, anyone can make a data feed, all data feeds that you bring on chain are actually owned by a user. So you actually choose which oracles you want to fulfill your request, or at least which realm of oracles, and the update frequency. So let's say you want your data feed updated every 10 seconds. Your data feed key will be added to one of these cranks, and then people are incentivized to turn those, let's say every 10 seconds for your data feed, to schedule those responses, to schedule those Oracle wake-ups, and do that job every 10 seconds. So all those oracles will wait for the responses, receive response, calculate the weighted median response based off the weight of each source, and deliver that back on chain. And then the data feed will collect all the responses from all the different oracles and then decide on the best answer that's delivered back to the user finally. So now we can actually move to the switchboard publisher that I want to show you over here. So I'm going to move to our website now. Before that, it might be nice to see our Explorer page to kind of get an idea of what the settings are. This is our Solana page right now. That's got a bit of usage, and you can actually see two sections here. Let's see. So these are all user-created feeds over here. You see user-created, and we have a big set of them that are active today. And then we have a set of sponsored feeds right here as well that we actually just distribute as a public good because we know that they're pretty often used. So if you go into these, you can see the responses from a number of oracles that are reporting for this data feed, the actual current confirmed result in this data feed, the current address. So if you ever want to load the results, you just have to address into our program using this key, and the actual owner of the data feed. And as I said before, Switchboard's a permissionless platform. Anyone can make a data feed. This authority will have the rights to edit that data feed. And this works the same across all chains. It works exactly the same on Near as well. You have how often this feed should be updated, how many of the jobs that I talked about before should be successful. And right here, you can see all the different jobs that the oracles are told to do whenever a data feed update's requested. Fetch from Bittrex, fetch from OKX. We allow you to connect oracles to WebSockets on request, connect to Coinbase, all these different sources to identify what the most accurate price is. And when you make a data feed, you also make something called a lease, in which you put a balance in, and as long as this balance is filled, every single update that you do with the data feed, a small sum of the native token for the chain will be sent to the oracles to then fulfill the request. And you, as the data feed creator, should keep this funded so your data feed stays active, because if you ever run out of funds to pay the oracles are no longer incentivized to keep the feed updated. So as long as that's filled, the oracles will keep updating the feed. So let's go to, let's see if we have another more complex feed over here, because we have some really cool features as well that you can actually do in these feeds. So let's see if this one's has the, So if you really want to make a giant feed like we have here, you can see this is a pretty complex operation here. We have a few different options. If I'll give you a little structure on how some of these jobs are formed. We have a top layer of Oracle instructions called jobs, and each job has a chain of tasks like you see here. So right now, what this user is doing is that they're using something called a cache task, where they're doing some complex operation and saving it into a variable that's being used later down in their whole job operation. So if you want to do an operation with a lot of things that are from very specific sources on chain or off chain, you don't have to call that multiple times. You can save that into a variable to be used down the line in a more aggressive manner. So it's not as process intensive for your feed, and it's easier to make. So let's see. Right here, you can see that a person is trying to get the price of an LP token by the calculation they did of a total vault value with a total LP pool supply. And then in the end, they're just returning that value. This is a more complex feed, and I'll go and show you some more basic examples here. And it's really nice because you don't have to make all these feeds by hand. We actually have a UI for building all this, where we show you all the different types of supported tasks that oracles can understand. And we have some examples in our documents on how to build these too. So if you want to build something really simple, you could say, I don't have that right now. Let me see. You can easily just put in an HTTP source, and then say you want to that this is a REST API. You want to parse out some field from the JSON. You can use this JSON path syntax and just make a job like that. They'll fetch the price of Bitcoin from Binance and parse out the price, and then you can just go add to cart and make a new feed with that. So I don't have to name it. You see? No thanks. Checkout. And on checkout, you can see you can add a few other settings. If you want to enable automatic updates, if you want to add it to that crank entity, how often you want to update this feed. Let's say we want to update it 5 seconds. How long do you want to keep this funded for? Let's say we want to keep it funded for 1 day. And how many of the jobs you listed should be actually executed appropriately if the Oracle should respond or not. And the number of oracles you actually want to respond. If you want the oracles to respond within a certain variance threshold, that means you don't have to waste spending money on transactions if the price doesn't move more than 0.5%. In some cases, that's tolerable for your protocol, and it could be a lot cheaper. And then you can go to checkout, and then it will trigger a number of transactions to fulfill the request right here. I think you understand the idea of how that works here. But now let's go and understand, we have these data feeds already on chain now. How do we actually go and read these feeds? So we actually give you a library for parsing data feed accounts, and we show you an example right here. So essentially, what you can do is you can make your program. I have a very simple near program here, and we have this function called aggregator read. And what that's going to do is it's going to call into our program. It's going to call this function aggregator read, and it's going to say, what is the address of the aggregator you actually want to read? And you as actually a data feed creator can choose to charge people for reading your data feed if you want. If not, this can be left, the payer field can be set to none. But you can choose the address you want to read. And then in your promise, in your callback after you read that function, you can do something with that value. And right here, we have that callback. So what we do is we use our SDK to parse out what we call an aggregator round. And we parse out the latest result from this aggregator round, and we just print it. So let's go, and I have the example already set up right here. And we're going to post the program, and we're going to initialize it just doing that aggregator read function. And I'll give it a second to deploy. There we go. Now I have to wait another second for it to actually land. Let's see if it's up now. Oh, well, it might not land just yet. Let's try one more time here. Oh, the feed hasn't landed just yet. But anyways, I had a previous call here. I'll try that again later when to see when it lands, but you can see the feed value of the BTC USD feed that I just called there was about $17,000 at that time. And then you can go and use that in your protocol however you wish. That is a majority of what I had to talk about today. And for the randomness, VRF is natively supported, but happy to explain any of that and how people integrate the native near VRF, because we've done quite a bit of work on that and we love to help people. So if you ever want help, please just scan this QR code, message us on Telegram or Discord or Twitter, and we are happy to help you build out your feeds, build out your programs, and help you use Switchboard and onboard near DeFi for the next generation. So thanks so much, guys, and please do ping me if you have any questions.
Yeah, I got some questions too. So you kind of went on the side of like paying people to basically publish your oracles. Like how do you earn? Can you kind of go on?
Yeah, sure. So on Near, when you actually make that new data feed, we have to add that to the UI, but you can actually set a price for reading the data feed. So let me go back here. Let me go into the Near tab. And Near testnet. So right when somebody plugs this in to their program, they specify that address back on this address line. And they also have to specify a wallet to pay in the native Near token. And if that feed has a charge associated with it that the data feed creator can set, then that will be deducted from the payer wallet, or the callback will fail. So in order to read a data feed, they have to give a wallet address that has sufficient funds to pay for that feed, or else the transaction will fail.
And so like what are people doing or like pulling from for these prices? Like how are they like?
Oh yes, yeah. So some data feeds can actually have private data. So you know how I showed you that cache variable where you can actually put variables into jobs before? If you recall that when I showed that other feed. You can actually also spin up your own Oracle and include any private information you want to be kept off chain and you can use that same variable expansion to actually use access keys that you don't have to expose on chain that the oracles already have access to. So in that way, you can get sports data that is non-public, that you create or manifest in some way, and charge other people to read that information.
So you're mentioning like DeFi and sports data a lot. Like, can you kind of show kind of some interesting feeds that like aren't in these categories and like maybe highlight some use cases outside of DeFi?
Oh, sure. Let's see. So someone made a feed if SBF was in jail or not. I know that one. Someone made people make a bunch of funky feeds. I saw somebody made one for weed prices, which I thought was pretty hilarious. Let's see which ones are active right now. There's NFT floor prices. Let's see. There was a number of people in space I saw, which is a cool app. And I've also seen a lot of weather ones that people have been testing out. For ones that are active today, I'm not seeing too many of those, but those are just some ideas that I have. Also to go on top of that, feeds do have an option to make on-chain history. Let's go look at a feed that has history. And on top of those, you can actually make TWAPs. And for any time frame that you wish. So let's see if SolUSD has one. Yeah, SolUSD has on-chain history. So you can track this. You can do operations on history too. You can make a TWAP on any time frame of the history as well.
So can you kind of talk about like the pricing model, like how much are people traditionally spending on Near to keep a feed going for and like
Sure. So that's all up to the actual queue that the data feeds are on. Right now, we estimate it to be about 2.5 times the gas cost of the transaction that you sent over. So we try to keep it cheap, but also letting the oracles be incentivized to actually operate here. But of course, that just varies with the range in gas cost. So I set an upper limit for this example, but it's actually much cheaper for the actual gas units. I can get you that after, but I don't know off the top of my head.
and then like when can you kind of outline like from this day just so people have some context, like when was like Near mainnet launch?
Oh yeah, near mainnet launch. That was at least 2 months ago, I think, at this point. Um, but yeah, no, beginning of October, if I recall correctly, September, October would be around the space that we've been on mainnet for. And yeah, we've had a lot of help from the community to see what people want, and a lot of great partnerships in the space. And if anyone else wants help, we are happy to help them integrate and get started. And if cost is ever a concern for them, this is a really cheap scenario, just reading a piece of information from their program. And a lot of the data feeds don't have specific charges themselves. We haven't seen that much use of that just yet. Mostly people just want to use data feeds for themselves instead of trying to sell their own data feeds. But we'll see where it takes us.
And then can you kind of outline maybe on like Solana or Aptos, like what are kind of like the dApps that are currently like using switchboard feeds and yeah, just like kind of like in protocols being built on top of switchboard.
Yeah, sure. It's a lot of DeFi based protocols, a lot of sports based protocols. Some haven't launched from the sports space yet, so I'm gonna leave their names out of it. But we work pretty closely with Solen, Tsunami, Hubble, to name just a few off the top of my head. We partner with a lot of other infrastructure protocols like Dialect, Notify, and we move on from there. We want to be a base layer for a lot of these chains, and we have really great partners in the space.
And when people like integrate like switchboard price feeds, do they like just implement switchboard, or do they use it in like with a centralized kind of API, or like kind of how do they like architect this solution with y'all?
So when people integrate switchboard, they use it for different scenarios. If there's we definitely make it easy for a lot of long tail assets to be brought on chain, since it's all user created and user based. But really, anyone can go and make one of these data feeds and configure it themselves. So for the ones that need our help, or want our help, I should say, it's usually been, what are the best price sources for these indexes we're trying to create? What do you guys recommend for the weighting? What's the highest integrity? Things like that. So I can't say specifically the user preference per se, but it's mostly about like asking us how do we get the highest integrity for this data feed? What is the truest, I would say, price point for a lot of these? And usually about feed stability over time. What sources should they and could they trust?
And then like can you like how big is like the actual like network of people who are like serving as like kind of like the oracles or like running these operations?
Yeah. So we have about 24, 25 active oracles right now. And that number is always growing. And if you want to go through our onboarding process, we're happy to help spin you up with an oracle and you can start serving requests and earning as well. It does take a bit of maintenance to make sure that your oracles do stay up, and we want to provide the highest integrity for our customers. So we do have a bit of an onboarding process, and we stay in close communication with all of our operators.
You kind of give a little bit about like the background and kind of the time commitment and like yeah, and like maybe like the hardware requirements or anything like that.
Oh yeah, so hardware require is actually pretty light. You just like we have a whole Kubernetes manifest that's like as long as you have uh two CPUs, 6 gigs of RAM, like you're going to be fine running these operations, and you don't need to be plugged into any first party sources because this is all a reporting model where you fetch over the web. So it's a actually not a too intensive setup from a hardware perspective, but you do need to be plugged in to RPC nodes from all the chains that we're integrated with. So running those RPCs as well and making sure those are stable is a piece of work as well.
No, awesome. Do you have kind of like maybe like a is there any more kind of near integrations happening, or is it more about like getting more feeds on and getting more people to run these jobs, or like what's kind of like the roadmap or like the way you want to kind of like roll out into the near ecosystem?
Yeah, so it's mostly about getting the users on the active feeds. We have the highest, like the most popular feeds already being sponsored, and we are seeing a good amount of usage. We want to kick that up and really expand the DeFi ecosystem on Near. So we have a number of protocols that are contacting us and saying we want higher fidelity feeds for some parts, and you can always create a update pace of like 5 to 10 seconds. We have a set amount, and we just help people make their own feeds if they want different cadence and updates, or if they want different settings and variance threshold to help them with the cost.
And then can you kind of give a little bit of information about like the trade-offs of like a regular price feed and like a decentralized one like yours and kind of what's causing people to switch?
Sure. So you're talking about different Oracle operators, I assume, yes.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between us and other oracles, really?
Yeah, and like ones that are like commonly like kind of like more centralized versus like
Right. Well, in this model, you don't like it's all about the security model in that case. Who do you want to trust with the control over your data? And in Switchboard, you can fully mandate that you need at least X level of distribution before a value that's brought on chain is trusted. To actually make sure that extra consensus layer is there might add a few seconds, but it does give you a level of peace of mind knowing that no single body has such a power to modify the price. So there could be some Oracle operators that have a lot of influence over the dApps that actually use them. We do not have that influence. We only run a portion of those oracles. And if anyone wants to require a higher amount of oracles or a different Oracle queue, you can spin something up that's totally segmented from any infrastructure that we run as well, and really gives you the power to trust the source or trust the Oracle as well.
awesome. Yeah, I see some people joined us in the audience. If anyone has any like questions or anything, or if you want to kind of say anything to end this off, yeah, now's the time.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll give it like a minute for questions.
I think we're good. I think we're good to enjoy our Friday. But yeah,
Amazing.
I really appreciated you coming out and breaking this down to us, and I'm looking forward to having more projects integrate y'all. So yeah, thank you so much.
All right, no, thank you.